I found a massive list of industries and NAICS codes that get the most business funding. You know, when you start a business in a favorable industry, you can confidently walk into most banks knowing that your business is respected and trusted by lenders who are ready and willing to approve you for funding. So I'll show you the high-risk industries to avoid killing your approval odds, how to turn a risky industry into a fundable one, and over 50 industries and NAICS codes that usually get the most funding from banks. Lenders use NAICS codes to assess the risk associated with your business. Some industries are considered riskier than others, and businesses in those industries might find it harder to secure funding or might only qualify for loans with higher interest rates. For example, industries like real estate, restaurants and trucking are often seen as high risk. This doesn't mean that you can't get funding at all if you're in one of those industries, but it does mean you might face a lot more scrutiny from lenders. Now, imagine if you run a successful trucking company. Business is booming and you're ready to expand your fleet. You apply for a loan, but despite your strong financials, you're only offered a loan with high interest rates. Now, why is that? It's because trucking is classified as a high-risk industry. The lender just sees your NAICS code and immediately categorizes your business as risky, even if you've never missed a payment in your life. Some NAICS codes are just associated with industries that lenders consider higher risk. These industries might have higher rates of business failure, greater economic volatility, or specific challenges that make lending to them riskier. And here's a list of some of the riskiest industries that often fall into that high risk category. You've got adult entertainment, ammunition and firearms, auto dealerships, casinos and gambling, cannabis businesses, real estate, restaurants and trucking. If your business falls into one of those categories, you might have a tougher time securing funding, or you might be offered worse lending terms. And most of the time, there's just no way to know for sure what industries are off limits for some lenders. That's why it's so good to have the ability to apply without any damage to your personal credit. I created a master list of no PG business cards that you can apply for without any personal guarantee and no hard credit pull. That way you can test the waters and see what you get approved for without hurting your chances of getting approved with other lenders in the future. This list has 25 cards and counting, and you can get instant access by hitting that link below. Banks are always thinking about how risky your industry is. And let's face it, some industries just makes banks more nervous than others. And here's why. Certain industries like real estate and retail ride the waves of the economy. When the economy dips, so does the business, making it harder for those companies to keep up with loan payments. Banks see this and worry about getting their money back. During the 2008 financial crisis, the real estate market collapsed, leading to a wave of foreclosures and significant losses for banks. And some industries like restaurants have a reputation for high failure rates. If you're opening a new restaurant, banks might think twice because statistically, these businesses are more likely to close within a few years. Restaurants are notorious for having high failure rates, with studies showing that about 60% of new restaurants fail within the first year. And sectors like healthcare or cannabis face heavy regulation, which can change overnight. Banks are fully aware that these regulatory shifts can make or break a business, adding an extra layer of uncertainty. The cannabis industry, despite its growth potential, faces a real complex and ever-changing regulatory environment. For example, when California legalized cannabis, many banks were hesitant to provide services due to the conflict between state and federal laws. And businesses that deal mostly in cash, like pawn shops or gaming establishments, are real red flags for banks. The risk of fraud or theft is higher, and it's harder for banks to track where the money is going. And industries with high liability risks like construction or trucking are more prone to lawsuits. This legal exposure can drain a business's resources, making it harder to stay profitable and to pay back loans. According to a study by Marsh and McLennan, the construction industry is one of the most litigation-prone sectors, with legal disputes costing companies billions of dollars annually. This high liability risk makes banks more hesitant to lend to construction firms. Now, this is where things can get tricky. Your NAICS code needs to accurately reflect your business activities, but there's often more than one code that could apply to you. Choosing the right one can make a significant difference in how lenders view your application. The NAICS system is structured in levels, starting with broad sectors and then getting more specific as you add digits to the code. For instance, if you're in the food industry, you might start with a broad sector like accommodation and food services, then really narrow it down to restaurants and other eating places, and finally, full service restaurants. But what if your business doesn't fit neatly into one category? Maybe you operate a restaurant, but you also offer catering services. In this case, you might have a primary NAICS code for your restaurant and a secondary one for catering. It's essential to choose the code that best represents your primary source of revenue because that's the one lenders look at first. And if you find that your NAICS code puts you in a high-risk industry, don't panic. You have options. If you're in a heavily restricted industry like trucking and want to appear less risky to banks, here are some strategies to choose a NAICS code that might improve your chances of getting funded. You can choose a NAICS code that reflects a broader aspect of your business. For instance, if your trucking company also offers logistics or freight brokerage services, consider using a NAICS code that emphasizes these broader activities. For example, you might select the NAICS code that applies to freight transportation arrangement instead of a code directly tied to trucking. This can really position your business as part of a larger logistics network, which may be perceived as less risky. And if your business involves any consulting or management aspects, then you could use a NAICS code that reflects this. For example, if you provide transportation management or logistics consulting, you could choose a NAICS code like process or physical distribution or logistics consulting services. This really shifts the focus from the high-risk trucking operations to more stable and advisory aspects of your business. Consider selecting a NAICS code that highlights a specialized or niche area within trucking. For example, if your trucking business specializes in transportation of medical supplies or other essential goods, you could use a code that reflects this specialty, such as the NAICS code for specialized freight trucking. This can help banks see your business as part of a crucial supply chain, which may be considered more reliable and essential. And if your business engages in multiple activities, select the NAICS code that reflects the least risky of those activities. For example, if you operate a trucking company that also does vehicle maintenance or repairs, you might choose the NAICS code for general automotive repair. This can present your business as diversified and less dependent solely on the more volatile trucking industry. Also, if applicable, consider creating a parent company or holding structure. The parent company can have a broader, less risky NAICS code, such as offices or other holding companies, while your trucking operations are a subsidiary of that. That can really help you present a more stable front to lenders, as the parent company might be viewed as engaging in a wider range of lower risk activities. While there's no one size fits all answer to the best NAICS code for your business, some industries are generally seen as lower risk by lenders. Businesses in these industries might find it easier to secure funding and get better loan terms. From my experience, I've only found one lender who was open enough to share their full list of approved industries. That list includes healthcare and social assistance. Most lenders agree that healthcare is the most desired industry for funding. And that's going to include things like acute care facilities, medical and surgical hospitals, and offices of physical, occupational, and speech therapists. Then there's the industry of retail trade. Think automotive parts stores, bicycle shops, and sporting goods stores. Then you have the broader industry of accommodation and food services. Think about bakeries, caterers, bars, and even bowling alleys. Then there's other miscellaneous services like automotive repair shops, barber shops and salons, photo studios and nail salons and portrait studios, things like that. But listen, if your business falls into one of these categories, you might have an easier time getting funding. But remember, every lender is different. And what one lender sees as a low risk, another might view differently. You really have to shop around and talk to multiple lenders to find the best deal. If you don't want to waste your time shopping around for more business funding, especially if you're in a risky industry like trucking or construction, then you're really like Rock Financial. They're a business loan broker and they will handle the entire funding process for you. So check out the next video where I interview Rock Financial's VP of Business Development. In that video, he shows me how they get construction business owners the most funding, even though they're in the most risky industry. Thank you for watching.